Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Culture Talks, brought to you by the Rec Shop Movement and the PBD Essex Museum. This is a virtual discussion for you to also be involved with our panelists in on hip hop, social injustice in hip hop in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I'm here with the lovely Jazzmyn Red. We got Corey Sant One Depina in the building, the lovely R.A.Y.E.L, and we have Raheem Jamal in the building as well. We also have Head ROC of Chocolate City Rocks, who's going to be our special guest. He'll be coming in later on to speak with you and also join us in these questions. I'm gonna let the panelists say hello themselves so you guys can familiarize. If you don't know, they can introduce themselves and let you know rather who they are and what they're about.
Guess that's my turn. What's going on, y'all? My name is Jazzmyn Red. I am a MC, an educator, and a hip hop activist.
Hello, my name is Corey Sant One Depina. I am a teaching artist, program director for an awesome nonprofit called Zoomex, also an MC and creative soul.
Peace, y'all. My name is R.A.Y.E.L, and I am a singer, MC, and natural activist.
Peace, y'all. My name is Raheem Jamal. I am an MC and artist, founder of Peace Love Foundation, activist art in motion.
PSA, your moderator for the night, aka the guy that's just going to try to keep things in line because we have some very good questions that are on the ballot to speak of. And while we are asking those questions, we also ask that you engage and, throw in your 2 cents into the comment box, and the comments will come over here and we'll pose your questions to the panelists as well if you have any. Kicking right off, right into things, in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we have to ask the first question of how Martin Luther King has influenced hip hop in each one of our panelists' lives. For me, I Had a Dream is probably the most epic speech, and I didn't want to sound too commercial with that, but having a dream as any type of artist, especially a brown skin or light skinned brown skinned artist or any type of artist, just being that it's a dream in itself. So to make that dream a reality is where Martin Luther King really fits into me. That, as well as being able to speak your fears as opposed to just hiding from them. But I'm gonna give it to the panelists so they can let you know how they feel Martin Luther King has influenced them. Tables open.
So, for me, as far as hip hop is concerned, how Martin Luther King has influenced that specifically with cadence and flow. He's like the ultimate MC. So, in that regard, not only did he know what to say, but he knew how to say it, which is very important as an MC. We all know when we're writing a song, like, you got those 16 bars if you're featuring, or you got 32, and how are you going to say what you need to say within that time and to really translate to who you're, speaking to. So from a hip hop standpoint, he's, 100% affected me and inspired me in that way. How he speaks to people, for sure.
I would even jump off of that. Shock G said once in an interview about Tupac that if you listen to how Pac flows, like, come with me, right? Yeah. It's the same as I Had a Dream. Like, it's that cadence, it's that tone, it's that flow of what you're saying. And, Dr. King, he was a reverend, right? Like, he came from speaking in the churches. And you can see that with when he speaks to his people. He uses that, he's giving sermons, right? And realistically, what hip hop does, once upon a time, we used to focus on political figures, right? Like, that was the highlight. Like, that's who you paid attention to. That was the leaders in the community. Right now, that lens has turned onto hip hop artists. Like, we're the orators, right? Like, we're the people who speak for the people now. We're the people in the forefront. So for me, it's always been about, like, that definitely is how I could see, like, MLK has influenced hip hop as a whole. But for me, I would agree, like, speaking your truth and not being afraid of saying what needs to be said. Because if you don't do it, who is going to, right? Like, we have to be the changes that we want to see. And I think that Dr. King's fearlessness is something that lives in hip hop, and is something that, like, I feel lives in me and my own hip hop artistry, for sure.
streets. You know, you said, you know, riots are the language of the unheard, but
Yep.
I feel like you can listen to it, you can hear that in hip hop. Like it doesn't have to get there. If you tune into that, you'll hear that struggle, and that's something that we've committed ourselves to as artists. Is I think true art will reflect that struggle because you have a human condition that you are obligated to, and that he definitely spoke to. That, like I said, it would not be hip hop had not been for that sort of, I don't know, loss in a sense. Unfortunately, get us fired up to create this
Catalyst.
motion. Yeah, absolutely.
He also gave people a lens to feel sympathy and to understand what others are going through. And as a writer, I try to do that in my storytelling and give people my view of how I see things, and hopefully they can connect to that and show some sympathy. Also in terms of the idea of like we shall overcome, and the idea of like wanting more and getting over suffering was really kind of cool to kind of feel that and then connect that to like my struggle, and then also to my art, and then hopefully connect it to my audience, which is pretty dope.
Kicking it right off. I hope that everyone at home is tuned in so that you guys are. This is exactly why we put it out. This is to quell all of your social distancing and all the crazy quarantine that's going on. We are socially distant here. We have all come back with negative tests. For anybody that's probably out there asking, we know there's probably a bunch of people that's like, but how are you doing this? We made sure we went through all the parameters. Everybody is 100% safe here. So jumping right on to the next question. Now, this question, ladies and gentlemen, we only got a little bit of time. All right. So this next question, when I spoke with Justice Bourne of the Rec Shop Movement about the questions that we should put out, we took a lot of time to look at these questions, and we definitely thought that this is going to be the question that was going to make some things jump off. So getting right to that, if Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was here today, what do you think he would feel about hip hop as it is formed thus far and its position in the world today?
I'll jump on that one. We were talking about this a little earlier too, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but a couple of us had the same sentiment where it was like, I think for sure MLK would be so proud to see this art form that came from the black and brown neighborhoods, and now it's on this global scale. Like, one of the elements, breakdancing, is about to be in the Olympics. You know, like there's MCs all over the place in all different countries, in all different languages. You hear hip hop, and that came from, you know, the inner cities. So to see it on such a scale, I think he would be so proud. But I also think that the absence of some of the messages that we need in mainstream hip hop, because it's not that you can't find it, it's that commercialized mainstream hip hop is, you know, the highlight right now in a lot of ways. And to see that capitalism has taken over hip hop in such a way, I think he would be disappointed to see that. But to the level that hip hop has risen, I think he would think that is, you know, beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. I think that really would love the fact that it's a global phenomenon, but at the same time, we'd be sad that there aren't people, brown and black, in positions of power, like in the record labels and owning the companies and owning the industrial aspects of pushing a message in terms of the culture and the music. So I think that he'd be proud of where it went, but also still sad that it's structurally the same.
I think he would also hold artists to a higher moral obligation with a lot of what's coming out, a lot of the poison that we kind of experience in the music, because there is a good versus evil element, the spiritual element to this, a vibrational element to this, and I think he would definitely take issue with some of our messages. Like, and like you said, it's not that the positive messages aren't out there, but you know, they've been undermined by the powers that be for a very good reason, because this music is powerful. Yeah, it's a very, we understand how powerful this medium is, and I'm sure he would recognize that. And yeah, like it's a double-edged sword when it comes to what he would really feel about this, because he's like,
it's like you're proud of your kid, but then they're acting up that sort of type of behavior. Like it's because it's kind of his child, you know, in a sense.
Yeah.
So.
But again, too, like that's one of MLK's. That's one of Martin Luther King's most anchoring attributes is that he was able to stand in the middle of sides. He was able to stand right in the middle. So even in terms of rioting, he's literally said, like, I'll say this and I'll say it again. I think socially, rioting is not the answer. And then I will also say I understand why it is happening. It doesn't take this isn't a NASA equation. We're not solving quotients. It's obvious why you're rioting. And I also know that it's wrong. It's like saying, sugar is horrible for you, but I also understand why you keep consuming it. It's everywhere. So it's like he always stood in the middle. Yeah. And that's a very powerful thing to do because it takes another level of courage to do that. It takes another level of courage to look over the whole macro view of something with wisdom and stand up for what is right, not what is black, what is white polka dot zebra print, but actually just what is humanly right. And like we can't be doing that either, you know what I mean? But also saying, I understand why it's happening. So that's an attribute that I think he would just carry on in hip hop today. He'd be so happy to see where we are, so hopeful with how we set the example for what humanity should be in some ways. And then in other ways, we see the vices. We see it all with hip hop, it's raw. But I think he would like the fact that we are the beacons bringing this whole thing forward, you know what I mean? Still. Yeah.
That was great. Amazing panelist.
So for our next question, as we know, hip hop is the child of the civil rights movement. What are some differences and similarities between the two? Anyone?
Well, the similarities between the two, both are movements that are pretty rooted in overcoming, and then the idea of like overcoming a situation, a circumstance that you're in because of your community or your neighborhood or a position that you're put in. It makes me think about like the evolution of it, right? You have like Martin Luther King, and he's like speaking and letting people know that he gets assassinated. And as he gets assassinated, the whole world kind of riots and like is angry, but then we find this black power. And that then gives birth to like Gil Scott-Heron and the Lost Poets. And that gives birth to like then the Public Enemies. And then the idea of like, it starts in the root of like, we're overcoming this. We shall overcome, we shall unite and get together. So I think a lot of the similarities are found there. And then also the similarities that are found in like supporting a movement, which then go into the aspects of like community, the aspects of like organizing, the aspects of like promoting and supporting and like investing and really being involved. All those key components lie within the culture of hip hop also. Each one reach one, you help each other and you see it within yourself to help one another, which is kind of amazing. And it's rooted in that. And it goes back to them being human and being people and the idea of like listening and showing like a little bit of understanding of where someone's coming from. So it's really kind of cool. I mean, it's one of those things where you can go to like any part of the country and be like, yo, you down with hip hop? Yeah, we can break bread. Or you can go to any part of the world and be like, yo, you believe in like people should have the fair equality? Yeah, let's break bread. So it's kind of cool and kind of rooted in that.
I think add to your point of like, there's the civil rights movement and there's hip hop, and then there's factions of the civil rights movement and there's subgenres of hip hop that I think a lot of people like. Rock has subgenres, right? Like you have alternative and you have this and you have that. Whereas hip hop, everybody just says hip hop, and hip hop is supposed to encompass down south and trap and New York and classic, old school 90s. Like it's supposed to encompass all these things, but we're all very different, and what we choose to do with the artwork that we create is different, right? But we're all part of the same thing. It's the same culture. We use the same slang. We wear the same clothing. We know, you know what I'm saying? Like it's still the same movement, but how we choose to represent it is different. Similar to when you look at the civil rights movement. A lot of the time when you look at the civil rights movement, you're only seeing like, oh, like the peaceful protests and like this is what the civil rights movement was about. Like, no, there was, MLK who had his vision of peaceful protests and nonviolence. And then you had, Malcolm X, who was doing something different with the Nation of Islam, who was, you know, by any means necessary. And then you have the Black Panther Party that was about community economics and how do we become self-sufficient, but also you owe us. Like, so everybody had kind of these different ideologies, but the end result was still the same. The end result was still to affect change for our people. And hip hop is very much similar. It's all the same thing. We all trying to do the same thing. We all trying to speak our truth and make music and make art that falls into our culture for our people. But some are like, well, we got to talk about these topics. And some are like, well, I just want to party. And then some are like, well, you know, I don't even want to do either one of those. Like, I want to do this over here and fuse music instead. Like, it's all a similar goal, but there's different ways to express it, and there's different pieces of it. You can't just blanket it, like this is what it was.
In any parts of it, all kind of working towards, you know, like you said, one unified goal in a sense, when it's in its true essence, I feel like. The difference being that, like we were talking about earlier, like just in the previous question, is that I feel like there's both of these movements have reasons for energy to undermine those movements. Like those, like hip hop is for people, you know, in its true essence, civil rights as well. And there's a dark side of hip hop that exists that powers that be prefer to highlight because they recognize the strength, like you said, the strength of it. And I was, you know, and that's a similarity with the civil rights movement. There are people who are there to undermine it as well. And it's tough to, you know, you keep going through it and trying to get to that goal, that one goal that we're shooting for. But it's tough, man. Like it's tough with all these forces undermining daily, you know, and going that way.
Real good discussion so far, and I like how, you know, the panelists have really controlled themselves, because I really thought that these first couple of questions we were going to get a little bit crazy, but we didn't. I love it. This is I thought that was going to happen. I thought we were going to have a question cipher, and I thought it was going to break down. But see, I don't even have to moderate. This is good. I like it. Now, on to the next question. We know hip hop has influenced consumers in society to buy things, but how does or how can hip hop play a role in influencing basic income and civic engagement, like getting involved in building up the community instead of destroying it? Now it might get real.
The morning after Martin Luther King got assassinated, the counselor and mayor of Boston had scheduled for James Brown to do a concert at the TD Garden Center, which is what it's called now. And the counselor talked the mayor into projecting it and having it be live. And the mayor bought into it, and James Brown got into it also. And instead of us being out there and rioting and like creating more problems and letting out anger in ways that we couldn't deal with without knowing, people sat at home and watched James Brown perform, you know? And that's a real strong example of how, you know, music can bring people together even during a time of uncertainty and a time of unwary. People wanted to be together. And if we had no other option, we probably would have been outside together rioting. But instead we were at home together watching James Brown and getting down with it. And there was a moment during the show where people started rushing the stage and white officers went to go stop them. And James Brown was like, stop, wait a minute. People, we can control ourselves, you know what I'm saying? We're here to pay homage on the day after the death. And everything went back to normal, and the party went on, and James Brown went on performing. So even in that real true life story, that's like a real example of how simple music can also be used as a tool, and supporting in that culture of music can also be used as a tool to bring people together during times of suffering, so that they can have a moment to like heal and be heard and explain themselves, which I think was really dope that our city, came together like that. And that was right after busing, so it was hot. The mayor who had just got in the office was like, they had just put forced busing into like segregated areas and neighborhoods. So the tensions was up there, you know, it could have been a lot worse. But good old James Brown, you know what I'm saying, the godfather of hip hop, brought it to the roots.
Yeah, even to
Back on earlier, Jazzmyn, what you were saying about like hip hop just being like a microphone, like we literally are the microphone and we amplify what everyone needs to say and we let everyone know it at once, you know what I'm saying? So like that is also super, super important. And sorry, I just lost my thought a little bit. Can you bring back to the question just so I can, oh, how it influences, what was it? How,
Influencing
Ex-
basic income and civic engagement.
yes, thank you.
Instead of breaking down, building up.
Exactly, thank you. So hip hop being like that soapbox, we literally are a liaison between like old and new generations. So if old generations want to say something, if political, stages want to say something, if we want to say something, you know what I'm saying? We can literally just activate people and send that message out and affect people and say, go vote here without rapping. Killer Mike.
Yeah.
Go vote here because this is who we need over here in Georgia. And over here, go vote for this person. You know what I mean? So we have people in place that are hip hop heads doing what we are called to do. Like we are literally, the strong arm. We are the strong arm. Like we're part of the whole thing. Like we are part of the body that is Black culture. You know what I mean? And just as much as everything else, like sometimes you need the strong arm to come out and say exactly what needs to be said when it needs to be said. Yeah.
What will you use your platform for? That's really all that it boils down to. Because you can make raps about anything, which means you can make rap music about basic income, which means you can make rap music about buying stocks. Like, instead of, Jay-Z did a good job at that on 444. He was just dropping gems like, what's iller than throwing a bunch of ones in the strip club? Credit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes, sir.
you just have to change the topic. You just talk about it. That's all that it is. And that's how you choose your leadership. Like, you choose who you're going to be every time you put a pen to a page. So don't choose what they're telling you to choose. Don't choose the negative imagery. Don't choose that. Even if it's just for one song. Like, everybody's going to speak their truth, make the music you want. But you can consciously make a choice to flip the whole narrative if you want to. Hip-hop can flip this whole narrative on its head.
We have an obligation to do that.
Too. We have the power to do that, to hold these people, hold people accountable for like, even DJs, like, why are you playing this right here? Why are we not playing some of the more positive stuff, the things that make sense, the things that would enrich our culture? What is the reason for this? So I think we as artists need to start holding other artists accountable too. It's like, you need to change your messaging a little bit. Not, you don't got to change who you are, but just a little tilt in some of that because your words are so powerful.
You know what? I'm sorry.
No, that's what
You
we're
saying it, I'm also thinking like, on the other side of that coin, like I think hip hop needs to just support hip hop more. Because if you had mainstream being like, check this underground hip hop artist saying this, because we literally are all saying the same things, and this is my particular lane that I'm really good at, and it resonates with me, and I can flex this message for you. But like you said, we're all part of this one family. So there's no reason why MCs of all, different facets of hip hop shouldn't be able to shine. Why aren't we shining on each other more? Why aren't you seeing like a mainstream artist at an underground artist? Like, we're all hip hop and we are solid. Like the solidarity is real. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Well, like we need more of that, I think.
Not to cut you off.
I know that was a detour.
See this? I didn't think I was going to have to moderate, but I got to moderate now. We're going to break it to a quick 6-minute break. We're going to show you some unreleased footage of a cipher that happened at City Hall in Lynn that no one ever seen. I'd like to thank our sponsors, the PBD Essex Museum and the Rec Shop Movement. And definitely for our viewers at home watching, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back in about 6 minutes. Not about, but 6 minutes exactly. Right here, Culture Talks with your moderator, host, Mr. PSA, and our lovely panelists. And welcome back to Culture Talks. I am your host / moderator, Mr. PSA. This is a Culture Talks, social justice and hip hop on the day of Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day in remembrance of Martin Luther King Jr. I'm here with my special guest, aka the firest panelist you've ever seen in your life. I've got again the lovely Miss Jazzmyn Red, Corey Sant Wondapino, Miss R.A.Y.E.L, and Raheem Jamal in the building. We're gonna get right back to the questions. Hopefully you guys got your potato chips and things and you hopped off the couch and you're back at your computer screens. That way you can join the conversation, and hopefully you have some good questions so that we can pose those to the panelists as well at the end of the segment. So, jumping right back onto things. As you can see, our last question got a little bit crazy, but it was good crazy. It wasn't bad crazy. Nothing like that thing that happened on the 6th. Won't even talk about that. But getting right into it, our next question, panelists, we have, how do you find the balance between giving yourself to your community and making time for yourself? I'm going to throw it at Corey, because Corey always comes with the fire sauce immediately.
Fire sauce coming immediately. It's really interesting because an individual can live, particularly now in today's day and age, on a computer and never leave. But even online, you can find a community, right? The idea is, in order, I think personally, to get further in life, you can't do it by yourself. You have to find people who can support you and who can help you within like your community, your household, your neighborhood, your state. I've traveled, all across the world because of my connections with other people. And I only think that I made those connections because I stepped off of my block. You know what I'm saying? And then once I left my block, I started to see that other people were going through similar things. I started to figure out resources and see that there are systems put in place that I was never aware of. Even the system that I was put in to be raised in the projects. It's really interesting. Once you can understand the system, then you can figure out ways to like have that system work for you. And the idea of like writing grants, the idea of like finding support and understanding foundations, and that institutes are built to like serve people. You know what I'm saying? The museums are put there so young people can go and have access to quality art. Schools are built with people who are on boards who make decisions about your children's education. You want something done, go to those meetings, ask those board members. Those are all different communities and different systems that are like put in place, as scary as it sounds, to help put things in order and to help give people opportunities to make and mold them. So as much as one person might complain about certain systems, of course you're gonna complain about something you don't understand. I can give a Rubik's Cube to somebody. If they don't understand it, they're gonna be mad pissed at it until they get it, you know what I'm saying? And then once you get it, you realize that that's a powerful tool of understanding sequences, and you can accomplish something. Similar on a very microscopic level is the act of being involved in your community. As simple as raising your hand in the classroom and changing the environment by asking a question, or going into a city town hall meeting and saying, I need a stop sign on my street because a young person got hit by a car last week. So it's really interesting to understand like how you can do it, where you can do it, but it starts by connecting. And really for me, it was about like looking past myself. I was like, forget that dude, he's too white. Forget that person, he's a nerd. Forget that person, he doesn't look like me. And once I stopped doing that and started to realize that we actually are all together and all have things in common, I started having conversations about things that made a difference. And then that helped me, and then helped me help my community, and that kind of, in retrospect, helps the world.
Told you, Corey come with the fire sauce. R.A.Y.E.L?
So I think an important way to make time for yourself, or how I would make time for myself, I'm really good at this anyway. Like, there is a virtue in selfishness to a certain degree, you know what I'm saying? And self-care is a form of activism, okay? Self-care is probably the most powerful form of activism, that you can show up every day in the world and say, I did something. When you choose what you put in your body as far as food, when you choose what you put in your body as far as text messages, television shows, when you choose what you put in your body as far as your own affirmations, you know what I mean? So I think when it comes to showing up for my people, it's showing up for myself. And when I know I need self-care, I make zero apologies to take the time that I need to take. Ever. I don't make apologies for that because I know how much I care about people. Yeah. So I don't apologize for it, So that's how I make time for myself, so that I'm always giving like 100%, when I put myself out there.
Yeah, you gotta fill your cup up
Before you can fill up anyone else's cup, and that is super underrated. I never even considered that.
And that's a note to every human being out here,
Yeah.
because the level of oppression that we're under these days, it literally, you can't even fathom in how many ways you're being thrown off caring for yourself. You can't even fathom it. It's in everything you do, down to like literally your diet and the things you put in your body that affect your brain and the choices you make, like your thinking. So self-care is activism. They don't want you thinking about what you put in your body and who you choose to give your money to. in the things you choose to indulge in, things you choose to watch, in music you choose to listen to. You know, so self-care,
It's basic. It's the
activism,
basis
for real,
of
for
Well,
real.
spirituality is
Yeah.
self-care, knowledge of self, know thyself.
Yep.
And once you know yourself, you can connect to source and see the connection to everything.
Yep.
And that's one of the things. To answer the question, for me, I incorporated peace, love. It's part of my lifestyle. Like, there's almost no separating. Everywhere I go, I carry this energy. I try to connect this energy. In my house, outside of my house, online, if you're watching, it's a consistency. Like, and so there's a line that I'm trying to walk, and there's really no separation for me, like, between that work and my community, because it's here, it's there, it's everywhere. It's connected. It's not.
Yeah.
You said you don't see race, you don't see sexuality, anything. It's just above that and connecting on that level. And yeah, self-care is so key. Everyone is so key, though, for any human being. That is probably, I think, one of the. I just never even considered that before in that aspect, and that is so.
Doing anything
Ooh.
for the world, or if you think
Do
you're not,
something
you know,
for
what
yourself.
am I doing?
Yeah.
That is literally a choice of activism,
real
saying,
talk.
you know, I'm not buying GMOs today.
That's real.
Or I'm gonna go
that's-
local. I'm gonna go local to this farm because I don't
Yeah.
support Monsanto. You know what I'm
That's-
saying? Like,
that's-
that is activism.
that's a
you
deep-
know,
that's a really
just
deep-
being consciousness. You know, because we all live on everything is consciousness. You know, but you can choose lower frequencies or higher frequencies. So self-care is a form of higher consciousness and saying, I need this time. You know.
Fill your cup up.
Yep.
Fill your cup up.
Oh, first. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jazzmyn Red.
Realistically, like R.A.Y.E.L's saying, self-care is the most silent revolutionary act that you can do completely by yourself. Like, you don't need anything aside from yourself to be able to decide on what you are going to do about yourself and how you're going to properly take care of yourself, so then therefore you can take care of the rest of everybody around you, the movement, your activism. And I think, you know, activism is, you're putting yourself in a traumatic space often, right? Like, when we're out at a protest, when we're creating art that talks about what's going on in the world, when we're having conversations, you know, with people or coming to panels that are talking about the things that we're seeing on the news and what's happening, that is traumatic, because you're tapping into your own trauma to be able to talk to people about it, to be able to comfort everybody else, to be able to stand up for everybody else, to be able to do for everybody else. But you also have to be able to do for you. Because, you know, just like you said, right? Like, I cannot pour from an empty cup. If there is nothing I have inside me, there is nothing I can give to you. There is nothing I can give to the movement. There is nothing I can give to my people. So I have to take care of me first, and then I can continue to create a ripple effect of that and spread that outward. That love comes from me first, and love is a revolutionary act, you know? So you have to take care of your soul first and your spirit.
Okay. Shout out to the panelists today. Corey, I think she stole your fire sauce just a little bit. I'll try to get it back for you on this next question, but I think she took your fire sauce and had everybody else get a slice of the fire sauce. Whoa. So getting right to our next question, what do you all think about the way, and just again, let's try to keep, we only got a little bit of time. What do you all think about the way women are portrayed in music videos and other media promoting hip hop in terms of the language used to empower or degrade, objectify, or promote sexiness in the overall representation of women? I'm going to let R.A.Y.E.L start this off. Never mind. I'm going to let Jazzmyn start it off.
Say her first.
Okay, R.A.Y.E.L start it off.
It's hilarious. Okay.
There's many parts of it.
First of all, justice. This should have been its own culture talk.
Facts, right?
Okay. So when you want me to come back and moderate, no, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, this is something honestly that I personally struggle with. So this is a hard, man, it's just so layered. Because it changes so much even as, okay, so there's a few things with this. Like, one of the problems is saying in this day and age that there is a portrayal, because that's victimizing women, and we don't need to be doing that anymore. we are here in a period of time in the world where everyone is becoming conscious of the choices they make, and they're empowering themselves to make those choices. So women are, much more apt to represent themselves the way they want to represent themselves now, more than ever. And honestly, for that reason alone, sometimes I reserve from speaking on certain things, because for women, it's like, and for all my people, when I'm thinking about anyone, because I care, I'm not trying to put weight on someone's wings, and some people express themselves in a certain way. And like, especially from a point of women being objectified sexually, I've just always battled with that, because I really want to be taken seriously. And I'm sure you've experienced it. I've experienced it countless times, not being taken seriously. And specifically because I'm female, and specifically because someone likes me. You know what I mean? Like, you can feel it. You know how it is. We're humans. You can tell when someone is crossing a line, and I've had it happen so many times. So for me, it's been very intentional for that not to be a conversation when you want to question how talented I am, or when you want to see what I can bring to the conversation of hip hop. To the conversation of hip hop, I'm going to smoke you. You know what I mean? And let's make that clear. And then besides that, how do I represent myself as a woman? How do I represent myself as Rachel, who sometimes does want to be, you know what I mean? Maybe I want to be sexy, or maybe I want to be flirty, maybe I want to be like just free, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm 33 now, so understanding sexuality as a woman, I see it differently than when I was younger, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that because of X, Y, and Z, and and now I see it as a broader expression of humanity, and I should have a right to flex myself in the ways I want to flex myself. But with that said, the projection of what women should be coming from men in divine masculine energy is a problem.
Absolutely.
It's imbalanced. So I think that's more often, that is the thing right now. Like, we just need to, rectify the scales. But I think it's happening.
Yeah.
That was so long, I'm sorry.
It's a multi-layered
It's so
question, though.
multi-layered.
There's
Like,
so many
and honestly, and I could keep going. So just let us know. Me and Jazzmyn are ready. So
Right, like, because there's the woman aspect of it,
It's
right? Like,
so
woman to
much.
woman, nobody
Yeah.
should be policing women about what they can and cannot do at this point. We grown. If a grown woman wants to do what she wants to do, that is her business, right? But then you have the portion of like, okay, well, what responsibility do males have in hip hop to their woman counterparts, right? Because a lot of the time we're talking about black and brown men and black and brown women when we're having these conversations of like, what is about the portrayal of women in videos and the conversation around it. The third part is the part that everybody actually brings this question up because a grown woman exposing herself to other grown women, or a grown man speaking about other grown women, or whatever it is, like, that's grown folks' business, right? This question gets asked, I think, me personally, because of the children, because of what the children are being exposed to and how it's affecting the young people. So that's the third part of the question of like, well, what responsibility do artists have to children, and what responsibility do the community have to the kids, right? So it is a multi-layered question, and there's a lot, like, just off the top, like, police and women, gotta go. Misogynoir, gotta go. That gotta get all the way out of here. Kids being in grown folks' business, gotta go too. You saw Cardi B do it, you know what I'm saying? Cardi B did it to her own kid. Cardi B singing her song in the video, and then her kid came in the room and she was like, let me shut it off, right? We had, growing up, we had a bunch of different women who was making music, right? You could choose to listen to Little Kim and Foxy Brown. You could choose to listen to Eve and Remy. You could choose to listen to Lauryn Hill and Queen Latifah. Right now, there is not a variety. There's this and Rhapsody, unless you go digging for it. So, and that's the fourth part of the question is we need more highlights on various women that are here and doing this work, which goes back to the commercialization and the capitalism that is involved in hip hop. But
and goes back to us needing each other. Because honestly, like
And
all
loving
these
each
male
other.
MCs should be showing up for us, and all these female MCs should be showing up for us because we are so dynamic. You know what I mean? And we can get it in a lot of ways, and it doesn't just have to be one dimension with us. And like you said, there's this mainstream representation, just like with all hip hop, but also with the feminine representation. There is a mainstream of like what that algorithm needs
Yep.
to be. You know what I'm saying? But outside of that, like you said, we got plenty of MCs out here eating outside of even Rhapsody. You know?
Yep.
Like No Names, Ciroc, the
Yep.
MC, Beans.
you gotta
like
look
there are
for
mad
them,
MCs out here that you're just like, wow. Like, and we'd all love to hear from you. I can bank on that. You know what I'm saying? So. And then obviously so many that I just didn't even name, but
Yeah.
people that I just see that are just so valuable. And it's like, dang, I wish you were seen on a broader scale.
And working with kids, I work with young people. Like my students are seniors in high school right now. I've been with them since they was in the 9th grade. Like when I give these examples, especially when I'm talking about the kids, like I'm referencing the young people I talk to on a regular basis who have the baseline of hip hop. Some of them, I got a couple, got a little handful of students that they dig and they know, you know, who's who and what's what and who got bars for real. But for the most part, a lot of them, this is what they have, you know, that it's not right there. It's not in their grasp, like how this variety of female MCs was available to us, like a variety of men MCs are available right now, just right there, boom. I can gravitate towards this if I want to, because it's on the radio, just like that's on the radio, you know? We gotta start to uplift each other and highlight each other, and especially when it comes to female MCs, there's not just one prototype of like, this is what a female MC is. There's such a variety, and we gotta bring that to light.
I'll just add also that the young people, they're changing that narrative too of like gender roles in terms of like everything. And so I think the future is really interesting when thinking about what you expect from someone. And then also shout out to the Boston female MCs who are holding it down right now in my city. They are putting in a lot more work than some other people. The female MCs are killing it. They're definitely, check out the Boston female MCs.
They certainly are.
By design that the spotlight is on the wrong, like not the wrong, but you know, we need to have boundaries with our children when it comes to this, because there's adult music that is absolutely appropriate. Do your thing, girl. Like I like to see you do your thing, because I'm an adult. I'm a grown man. My son come in the room, yo. Like, so parents need to do a better job as far as filtering, because a lot of parents, I got 3 kids. They're my kids, they're not my friends. Like a lot of parents want to be cool with their kid and have them listening to, you're programming your child the wrong way if you're letting them listen to some of this more adult contented music, which, and like I said, it's dope that women are doing this. I'm glad to see that being embraced so much now. But there is only one spectrum of that under the spotlight, and we definitely need a wider gamut of that for a healthy.
It's the same spectrum that has always existed. That's what's crazy. And now it's like we're taking it over as well and just perpetuating the same objectification.
Yeah, and that's just crazy.
And that's how I see it. I'm like, yo, why are we slipping? Why are we falling asleep on this deception? But I also, like an MLK, I overstand the oppression. So it's like, yo, say what you need to say.
You know, I knew that question was going to happen that way. And, you know, we went a little bit over, but I thank my panelists again. But we do have a special guest panelist that is here with us from DC. My man is the activist of activists, the brother Head ROC, CEO of Chocolate City Rocks. You need to do your Googling, because I know a lot of y'all have time all day long to Google. So you need to do your Googling, do a little bit of research, and understand that this man is on the front lines of getting things done for the brown communities and the people that are underprivileged in their communities, and also has a serious hip hop background. So if we could just welcome Head ROC to the panel. Welcome to Culture Talks, Head ROC. Y'all can't see him. I think you can see him.
Thank y'all. Great discussion. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. So, Head ROC, I mean, we want to jump right into it. Of course, we don't have a lot of time, and we apologize for that. But
it's all right. I've enjoyed myself listening to y'all. Thank you.
Perfect. Now, being from DC, Head ROC, this is a serious question right now. What is your perspective of the recent, I don't even really want to call it this. Do I have to say these words? But I will. Of the recent presidency, if you will, the government response to COVID and the election results, and also the siege on the Capitol, and basically your thoughts on just with the next administration and previous topics that we have discussed. Just we want to get your insight on what you've heard today, but definitely on those main topics because you're on the hot spot, be it DC.
Oh man. Like I said again, thank y'all so much for having me. Thank you, Brother Justice Bourne and Rex Shaw Boomer. Thank y'all for what y'all do. Thank you for all the panelists as well. I really enjoyed listening to you all. I mean, the short answer this is a really short discussion. Racism.
Someone had to
That's
say
on-
it.
that's
I'm glad someone
that's
said
on-
it finally.
That's on the response to everything you asked me about. But just kind of going into it just a little bit, like you asked me about the election. You know, man, this country is moving forward away from the intent of its founding fathers. The United States of America is a nation that was intended to be a white nationalist, male-dominated society. It's in the Constitution. We don't even have to debate about it. You know, you don't have to make up an elaborate explanation for none of this. That's how the founding fathers set it out. I always like to say, and when people ask situations like what we're doing right now, having conversations about race, talking about the legacy of Dr. King, the founding fathers are rolling over in their graves. You better believe it, right? So me personally, I really, when I hear discussions taking place and people like harking back to the founding fathers and this glorious thing, I kind of check out of it for real. Because this, what we're doing is not what the founding fathers wanted us to do. We supposed to had just got out the field, all dead tired, getting ready for the next slave day. What we doing? I'm sipping tea. My peoples, and I do all this little drama for the psychology of folks who dealing with the times and really having a hard time. Put it all into perspective. Seriously, I'm having tea while an insurrection just went on 2 miles from my house. Right. Think about that, you know. Think about that from the thing that these times are different. We're moving forward and moving away. As tragic as the events that have transpired from last year's the Black Lives Matter protests and movement to this insurrection. Even as all of that stuff is going on, even as they're killing us, they're still killing us. You know, not to compare, but they're not killing us like before. But they still killing us. We're moving forward. And we're moving forward because we're able to stand on the shoulders of people like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and others who have paved the way, who have lost their lives for us to be here sipping on tea and on Zoom. And that's real talk. And sister, what you said about that self-care is that's the what did you say? Activism, what you say? Is the point?
Strongest, yes. Most powerful
you are
form.
absolutely right. So while the insurrection is going on and you sipping your tea,
Immediately.
take care of yourself. That means I got time to take care of myself.
100%.
That's all I wanted to put on that. If I can do that, I got time to take care of myself. That's so important. As far as the election, you know, I think or the selection, that's how I call it. I think that that the Biden administration won in even greater numbers. I just wrote a little list down. I think that the same type of monitoring and ensuring that the votes get counted like they did in Georgia, the recount, and they did in Pennsylvania, really monitoring it. Well, they need to go and monitor those elections to that degree in Texas. Because Texas ain't like that. Texas, they made it over. Texas, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Indiana, Missouri. Those are very tight states. All the everything we know about voter suppression, that's what's going on in those states. Go look at the margins of victories in those states. They like less than 100,000, 50,000 and some. I say all that to say is that the election was won in greater margins than that. This particular election, the focus on that Georgia and Pennsylvania, okay, that got it over the top. That made it enough, but truth be told, this country is moving forward. And as we are trying to move forward, the opposition is pushing back. And the opposition, it's kind of a weird thing. I call it the opposition, but really these people who climbed all over the Capitol last week, they are believers in the founding fathers' vision. They want what the founding fathers set this country out to be. A nation controlled by white men. And they're upset about it, just like they was upset about it in the Civil War. It's no different. You know, they democratically lost. I have a funny time with the word democracy because I just see it as a tool of white supremacy, really, because when non-Europeans and European descendant people vote away from the European paradigm way, the Western way, then they usurp the decision. So what's democracy? And that's exactly what's happening. That's what happened. That's what happened last week. You know, they couldn't accept the results. You know, and as far as that group of people, you know, folks pay attention to the selection results, and they talk about 88 million people voted for the Biden-Harris ticket, and 80 people voted for the Donald Trump. So people kind of think it's in this 50-50 phase. That's in the media. By the way, I think Donald Trump is very funny too. The mainstream media, because they are lame. They fuel it. They fuel the divisions. Absolutely. 100%. Right? So they got you thinking that it's 50-50, but it ain't 50-50. It's becoming less and less fashionable to be racist. If racism is not profitable, then that's when racism will cease to exist. Working on it. That's what we're working on. What else? I wrote some notes down, y'all. And you know, back to this insurrection that they had here. I will call it that because that's what it was. And that's really just a rebellion against the U.S. moving towards a multi-ethnic, multiracial, and a multicultural democracy. That's what they did. They rebelled against it. You know, I don't know what the language parameters here, restriction are on the shop. I keep it clean. Where we say where I'm from is that, and not I'm really not into these monolith labels, white folks, black folks, and stuff like that. But you know, like I said, for the theater, white folks don't like black folks telling them nothing, and that's what you're witnessing. A black person could tell a white person, hey, the stove is hot, the fire is, I just had the stove on 5 million, don't touch the stove. And the white person will look and be incredulous. What to do? Sit and burn their hand. You laughing because you know that's right. That's real talk. And that's really all we witnessing. In 2021, never, also, you know, this self-care thing, that's very important to me because I say 7 years ago, I was real heavy in the progressive movement of this country, and about 7 years ago, I had to pull out of it a little bit because it was robbing me of my health. I really feel you on that. And the points that I bring out is the really, while we're talking about these things that are very heavy and very traumatic and very challenging, there is not a ray of hope. There's progress that we have to acknowledge. It has to be acknowledged. You know, where we are in 2021, we have never been before. It's never been like this before. It's never been like this before. The temptation to compare it to other times is there, but the truth of the matter is, it's never been this way. It's never been 4 years after electing a black president. It's never been like that before. These times are unprecedented. And so these are the times for us to make with our art and creativity. These times are magical. Waving your wand. We should be waving our wand. To create the world that we want, right? And I say that while I'm waving, and I'll break out after this, is that I believe in what I'm pushing for with my business, with Chocolate City Rocks, is that it is the time of the artist. You don't have no power unless you got political power. Period. You can have the best nonprofit, you can have it funded, you can have great programs going on, but a political decision will kick your blocks over at the end of the day, and that's what we suffer. That's the trauma that we got. So I think it's time for artists to be running for office, to run the country. I think I'm tired of the politicians, the classic politicians, and they say when you get political office, you're a politician, but I don't believe that. Be who you are. That's if you get in the office, who you are, then that's the power, and that's exactly what Donald Trump did. So it's a lesson to be learned from Donald Trump's presidency as well. Now you know what power looked like. Now you know how you could use that power. Now we know. It's crazy. Learn from it. That cat went up in there, he shrugged everybody off. And he said, I'm the president? Oh, shit. What? What? Do this, do that, do this, do that. And that's what he did. People complained about it and all that, but he had the power that came with the office. We need to learn from that and do likewise for our side on the mirror side of things. I'm all for that. Not being apologetic about being a leader and making a decision, that a decision made in the company of your community, your advisors, your trusted people, and if it goes right, great, and even if it goes wrong, the courage to make the decision and I heard it said that a lot of folks don't want to be a leader, step up to be a leader because they don't want to accept the responsibility, but that's what it is, so we got to have that kind of courage, so yeah, all right, I feel like I'm rambling. Shut up.
No, you weren't rambling. You that was, everything that you were saying was spot on. You dropped jewels.
Go ahead.
We all felt like kids at Christmas. We was just sitting here watching like, wait, really? Man, I know. Uncle Ricky! Oh, man. So, does the panel have any questions for Head R.A.Y.E.L? I don't know what you did to them, Head R.A.Y.E.L. They had a whole bunch to say before you hit them with all the information, and now they're just like, I don't even know.
Well, I'm gonna say, then let me say something to my friends on the panel, y'all. Hey, I love what y'all doing, fam. Like I said, that self-care piece, that's everything. Stay healthy, y'all. Stay yourselves, I have
a question.
Yes.
Is there anyone in today's hip hop scene that you really do think is doing the work as far as activism is concerned? They're able to juggle what it means to be in the industry and be mainstream and also, give you your meat and potatoes.
I'll tell you like this. There are thousands of people in hip hop. I was listening to the conversation about hip hop, and it's not a monolith. There are thousands of people in hip hop culture who are doing this. They're in your hometown. Y'all doing it. I don't talk about mainstream cats. I don't do that. I live on the Underground Railroad, fam. Shout out. I run in between the plantations, hollering at my people. I'm blessed. I live a very blessed life. I don't care what they're doing on the plantation. I don't think about it. Radio, mainstream radio. I don't pay no attention to that. Cause that don't put no money in my pocket. Real talk. Help me eat. It don't help me eat. It don't keep me healthy. And the endless debates about it. It gets on my nerves. So what I try to do is celebrate the cats that I'm blessed to be in DC hip hop culture. So I know some folks. So I celebrate people that I know. So it's cats. Someone who I know that y'all may be aware of. Y'all know Odyssey?
What was that, Odyssey?
Yeah.
I think I have heard that name.
So he's a cat from the area. I heard y'all mention R.A.Y.E.L. I think she's
Yeah.
from around
Yeah. Yeah.
I think she's from the
She
DMV.
is. Yep.
Yeah, so y'all know Civic. There's a sister named Prowess the Testament that's down here.
Ooh, I like that name.
Oh man, my man Priest the Nomad just released an album called the Manhood Project. So y'all talking about creating music about life.
Yeah.
You know, I think what am I working on? I think I'm working on my 8th album. I think is what I'm working on.
Wow. Amazing.
And all the ones before were kind of social justice-y theme. And me as an artist, I don't like writing the same song twice. And I'll tell you this, I turned 50 this year. And
Congratulations.
years ago, maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I just got so sick of adhering to the formula of what it meant to be an MC, you know, battle rapping, talking smack about my fellow artists. I was like, why am I talking all this mess about in the whack MC? Why am I getting on the whack MC? It's a brave thing for someone to get up at pardon my cut up finger. It's a brave thing for someone to get up on stage and express themselves. I changed my whole mindset about that. Yeah. You know, so I'm gonna encourage someone. They might not be at that skill level, but that's all right. Yeah. You know, I enjoy that they had the courage to do that, because you never know what they're gonna say. You know, I lost my train of thought.
Yes, but there are lots of. I'm glad you called out a few of those MCs, because I want to look at what was the one that you said something the Testament.
Prowess.
Yeah, I like that name. I'm gonna check that out.
Yes. Yeah, she just released her her 3rd album or something like that. Oh, what I was saying was that I'm working on my album.
Yes,
and,
yes.
You know, social justice albums, and I don't like writing the same song twice. So I decided I'm going to write an album about relationships. I love it. You know, my relationships between me and my daughter. I got a 15-year-old daughter. I got things I want to say to my mom.
Yeah.
You know, to former lovers, you know, to the community and things like that. It's really about that community healing piece. I say this, where this country is today, and just to generalize, white folks are having the same battle they had during the Civil War. Excuse me. They trying to figure out what they're going to do with us. That's what they're trying to do. Let them fight. Let them have that. And while they're doing that, that gives us time to work on our interpersonal relationships and healing. That's how I look at it. That's what I'm focused on. I don't need to be in that. You know, I offer support. You know, and I offer support and encouragement to be courageous to our European descendant brothers and sisters who are dealing with this incredible challenge in this time. But as far as getting deep into it, I ain't deep into it. I'm holed up on my little square here in Chocolate City. My place is called Chocolate City Rocks, and I'm about building platforms and creating programs and places where folks can come and feel comfortable to have these difficult conversations we need to have to move forward and to heal. You know, on the relationship level, or whatever the topic is, it doesn't even matter to me, right? You know, just the one thing that I with my program, when I host and we had these conversations, just one thing, everybody comes in and leaves out with one thing, and that's their dignity. That's what I try to ensure. That's very important, you know, so.
Okay. So we did have a question from the audience that was watching at home. We had a question from Alexander Place, who asked how many of the panelists know their representatives and a bill that they'd want passed. I know R.A.Y.E.L got hot sauce, so I'm trying to. You know what? I'm gonna ask Head ROC.
And shout outs to the Peasy Report that he actually hosts and shares all sorts of political topics for us to be abreast to and to know what's going on in our state and in the country, you know, far and wide. So shout out to Alex for that question because he passionately cares about politics
Okay, well,
and
go
how we
into it,
move in
Rael.
them.
Go into it, Rael. You
Yeah.
got the sauce.
So say run the question.
He wants to know how many panelists know their representatives and a bill that you'd want passed.
So I recently just moved. I was in Massachusetts for a little bit, actually, for a while. And I just moved to Maine. So I know that the huge thing was up in Maine was Sarah Gideon, which was she was a little bit younger coming in on the scene. And I want to say Susan Rollins. Susan Collins. Susan Collins is like the person, the Republican representative that has been in Maine for ages, and she won again, unfortunately. But knowing that Sarah Gideon was pushing forward more progressive policy than Maine has seen, I was like, I need to be on this. I need to be aware of this because when I vote, when I did, I made sure to know that I needed to be voting for Sarah because she represented more of my interests than the person that was currently holding, you know, representation for me. So, and Alex has actually put me on to people abroad. He actually was the person that put me on to Cori Bush and all the amazing things she was doing in Georgia, and I didn't even know how she was lighting up. Or excuse me, not Cori, not Georgia. That's Stacey Abrams. Cori Bush, single mother who got put on for what was the state? Alex, comment in. Cori Bush, she's a single mom. She's never been in politics, and she just changed the game, and she usurped someone who's been a Republican representative for ages. She just took his spot. Is it?
Was she in Missouri, right? I think so.
It wasn't Missouri? I think you might be right. I think you're right. Yeah, you got it? Okay, word. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, shout out to Alex. That's something that he put me on to actually and made me realize that, you know, politics is something that us in hip hop, we need to be closer to. And we need to keep our feelers on.
We got some dope state representatives back, actually. Liz Miranda is amazing, and Adrian Madaro. And one of the bills that I'd like to see go through is the no-knock one about police being able to go in with no-knock warrants. I'd like to see that passed so that's abolished.
That should definitely be one of the top bills that get passed. No one should have the right to kick your door in and say we have a warrant. There should never, God forbid, there's ever another Breonna Taylor. That is ridiculous. I still feel as though the right thing was not done. I will not speak my full standpoint on that, but the right thing was not done. So the no-knock wall definitely needs to go. That should be the first thing abolished, and I said abolished with a lot of angst in my voice. Abolished. You need to get rid of it. It shouldn't have even been a thought on someone's mind to where you could kick somebody's door in, where they rest, where they sleep, where they hold their kids, where they have their family, and then you assume that they aren't going to protect themselves, and then when they do, they're wrong. That's crazy. That needs to be taken out of there immediately. That's I'm sorry, I didn't really want to get involved in too much of the conversation, but immediately upon hearing no knock,
I know.
you know,
especially what we just saw, the
yes,
injustice we just saw go down.
It's
all of us
right
are
now.
sick
It's insane
with that. Like, it's sickening that is something that happens. Yeah.
Anybody else have and does anybody else know the representatives have a law that they would want abolished? This is coming from Alexander Place's question. It's a very cool question.
What would you want passed right now based on like the conditions?
I would definitely have stop and frisk stopped as well, or probable cause as they call it. Officers being able to walk up on you on the street because you have a backpack or you look like you might have, or they just said that someone did such and such down the street and you look like that such and such should again never be a thought. But Head ROC, what do you got for us?
Yeah. Oh, I got my hand, man. I'm in the queue.
No, you don't need a hand, Head ROC. You just jump in. Jump in head first.
I just wanted to answer the question about, you know, like new laws. I was born here in Washington, D.C., and this place is not a state. Somebody was asking about representatives. I use that as a segue to talk about the situation here. Washington, D.C., your nation's capital, is the last legal plantation in the United States of America. because while we don't have our voice is not represented in the legislative branch of the government. So we have senators and representatives, and they call them shadow senators, a shadow representative, which means that they represent the citizenry and they go to all the meetings and they get time on the floor to talk and they get to vote, but our votes don't count. That is the hitch here. I bring that up to say that, I mean, that's, so like on our license plate is taxation, when our representations, you know, harkening back to the Revolutionary War, like why is it like that here and the country's foundings is breaking away from the British on the same principle. I say all that to say is that what I like to see, and I think now is the time to really push for it in the wake of the insurrection at the Capitol, is that this country needs a new constitution. It needs a new constitution, flat out, a constitution that is written by a reflection of the population, right? Not just white men. So now we need a constitution that has all the cultures and the ethnicities and the preferences here, there, and all around. And when we come together and draw up a document like that, that we abide by, then everything will change. I think that what happened over the 4 years of Trump in office, culminating in last week and I guess Wednesday's a transfer of power, it opens up the door to really push for that. You need a new constitution. It says, I'm working on it. It says the capital is the jewel of the empire, and Chocolate City is no exception. A symbol chosen to awe and inspire, to give the people compass and direction. And here is where their constitution lives, written so to let you know what their intentions is. All people equal, but we could only be 3/5, no matter what a nigga did. And that's what it is. I don't care nothing about them amendments. That Constitution, it calls it. The founding fathers' intent. It's time to get a new Constitution, and that'll change the police laws. It'll be a mental shift, a psychological shift, you know, for this nation, and also for the world, tying in what happened in this country to all of the maladies of the world. It's what happened here. It's not just about the United States of America, where white supremacy showed its muscle. That's a global happening. People talk about Canada. What you think Canada is? What's Australia? What's New Zealand? You know, so. That's what I'd like to see happen legislatively.
That's a new America. America without the K's, like, and that's real.
The new America.
We're gonna have to give America a whole new name. We ain't even calling it that anymore.
We're just gonna call it this land.
I'm with
Where
it.
you at?
Though.
This land.
I'm with it.
This land. It's your land, my land, and it's really that way now. It's our land. Where you at? Our land. And not Ireland. Our land. Ireland.
Ireland.
Please.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, this conversation, and again, I mean, for a lot of people at home, I know that you are, for those of you that tuned in and are still tuning in, again, we appreciate you so much for doing so. And, you know, for myself, and I'm sure for the panelists, being able to get out here and be able to voice our opinions on what's going on in the nation today has been absolutely, I'm sure it's been pent up in a lot of us for a while. I know I wake up every day, and I'm sure, I mean, Head ROC, my prayers, and like, I'm sending all of the most positive energy your way just because you happen to be directly on the hot spot. I don't even know, I would be, I don't even know what I would do if I were where you're at right now, you know?
I'm worried for y'all. We got 25,000 troops. I ain't worried about this.
You're right. AKA when we go home, lock the doors.
They shutting the bridges down in the morning. I ain't worried about y'all. I'm worried about y'all.
Man, like
That's real talk.
again, I mean,
And let me tell you something. This Washington D.C. This is Chocolate City, USA. And we know why they call it Chocolate City. It's always going to be Chocolate City. You better believe certain things don't go down here. The mayor here had to tell DC residents to stay home last Wednesday because in Chocolate City, historically, when white supremacists and the Klan come, hey, we show up, fam. Seriously, and only in these last 4 years, with Trump being the president, has that type of element been able to walk down the streets a block in this city. I told you I'm 50 years old. I know a lot of, they get their permits all the time with their First Amendment right to march. They get out them vans, they get walking about a half a block, and Chocolate City be on top of them. And they get in and they can't complete it. Only in the last 4 years has it been they've been able to do that with the protection of this cat that's leaving on Tuesday, you know. So we good. We gonna be good here. You know. I'm really concerned about folks in the outlying areas. Oh, and I'll share another thing. I mentioned some states that were like you know, in the balance, you know, where I personally, this is my personal beliefs, where I believe that the suppression of votes and things like that are happening in North Carolina, South Carolina. As a plan of action, I am in favor of, you know, we had the migration, of the last century out of the South to the North. I believe it's time to migrate back to the South and help our people out in those areas because they've been preyed upon. They need help.
It's true.
Real talk. It's enough of us up there. I mean, technically, I'm in the South, DC. I'm south of the Mason-Dixon, but you know, I say this is a place of southern hospitality with northern sensibility for maladies. That's how I describe it. But that move to the South, we need populations in South Carolina. They need help. North Carolina, they need help. So I'm a fan of that. I got my eye out. I got my eye out and ears out looking for people who are looking to do that as well, so that we can some fairer elections, if you will. So things that don't have to appear to be so tight. It's that kind of movement that I'm interested in.
All right. Well, I would like to thank all of our illustrious panelists and our special guest panelist, Head ROC, for joining us today.
Thank y'all.
Big shout out to Rose Glenn, who is here in the building. For those of you that don't know, you are in Rose Glenn Vision, aka you are able to see and hear us due to his skills, because he has those. Also, shout out to I heard that there's someone here that did these paintings and didn't even boast theirself, but I'll do it for you. I don't have a problem doing that. The artwork that you see behind us and behind the panelists, they are
the wood ones. The wood ones.
They are for sale. These here, this one here, and this one that's here, they are done by the man himself, Mr. Raheem Jamal, in the building. He didn't even tell nobody. He just said, you know, I'm gonna leave him there. They'll figure it out one way or another. PSA's here, whatever. It's fine.
It's all good.
And then we also have this artwork back here. I mean, I've been trying to fight myself and running out the door with it, but I know they'll catch me because I can't run fast. But
That's amazing.
this was done by TJ Reynolds, who is a master of this type of artwork. I've never seen anybody do it like he has done it, and he has done crazy different shows for this type of artwork as well. This piece is also on sale. That's a $600 piece. I mean, that is not a bad way to spend $600 and place it over your mantle, especially if you purchased it today. I would like to give another big shout out to our illustrious sponsors, the PBD Essex Museum and the Rec Shop. Wow, I really thought after all this quarantine, you guys would have did better than that one more time. I said the Rec Shop.
Movement.
That felt really good on the inside of me. For everybody that's at home viewing, I appreciate you guys for joining in with us. I've been your host, moderator, Mr. PSA. Again, shout out to the PBD Essex Museum and the Rec Shop movement for putting this on. This has been Culture Talks, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a good night.